D. Mace Finnegan and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Derek Mason, Adam Bingen, David Janes here with you. Willie Donick out today, but you can catch Willie Donick later when the Nashville Predators wrap up their back-to-back on the road in Columbus against the Blue Jackets. Puck drop at 6, pregame at 5, right here on 1025, 1063 The Game. You can watch Willie Donick over at FanDuel Sports Network, or you can watch the animated broadcast that Max Hers and Chris Mason are doing. It also starts at 6 o'clock on News Channel 5.
Oh, that's going to be so cool.
Called Music City Hockey in Smashville, an animated game. So that is, again, tonight at 6 o'clock on News Channel 5. You've probably seen the NFL do some of these games. The NHL has done some of these games. My son likes them. If you have little ones, I would highly recommend you tune into News Channel 5 tonight at 6 for this animated game called by Max Hers and Chris Mason. Speaking of the Predators, because I'm in such a giving mood this morning, be caller number 4 at 615-737-1025. Our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Be caller number 4, and you will win a pair of tickets to see the Nashville Predators host the Montreal Canadiens on Sunday. Puck drop is at 6. So caller number 4, 615-737-1025 will win a pair of tickets to see the Predators take on the Canadiens this Sunday at Bridgestone Arena at 6 o'clock. How are you today, Derek?
Hey, I'm doing wonderful, man. I had to fix my headphones. Had to tape them back up. I know people are probably wondering, well, tape them back up? What do you mean? Just go buy another pair. No, I'm not that guy. I will roll with these things till I can't roll with them no more. The wire has to be basically hanging off for me to go get some new headphones. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to Jimmy rig it. I'm going to pull a MacGyver. I am going to use as much tape as I possibly can. And when it breaks, the tape comes off. You know what I'm going to do, Adam? Clean it and put some more tape on there.
I used to keep back in my teenage years when I fancied myself as a skateboarder. I wasn't very good at it, but I fancied myself as
long as you fancied yourself.
Yeah, if I got a little rip in my Van slip-ons, duct tape those suckers up.
There you
go. They were disgusting by the end. I think my mom threw them away in the middle of the night one time because she wanted to get rid of them so badly. So I understand how important it is to tape things up. So one thing that we have not seen in the NFL this year, we have not seen a trade involving a first-round pick. And I saw this last week, maybe actually a couple of weeks ago, from Adam Schefter. According to ESPN, this is the closest to the start of the NFL draft in which there have been no trades for first-round picks since 1993, when 5 days before that year's draft, the Chiefs traded a first-round pick to the 49ers for Joe Montana. So this is the closest to the start of the draft in which there have been no trades for first-round picks since 1993. And we're all waiting for trades. We love trades. We love pretending to come up with trades. It's all about trades. Trades. So luckily for us, Bill Barnwell at ESPN.com wrote a story that was published yesterday. The 2025 NFL mock draft with all trades. So this is something that Bill Barnwell does every year, it seems like, where he does a mock trade for every pick in the NFL draft. Now, one thing that he notes is that for 32 picks, he has 32 trades occurring in 32 different universes. The trade he projects with the number 1 pick doesn't take place in the universe in which the number 2 pick gets traded on and on. The goal, according to Barnwell, is to capture a scenario that might compel a team to make a move on draft day. He uses the Jimmy Johnson trade chart, which NFL teams use to communicate the value of potential picks with one another. So he's also taking into account the draft history of established GMs who have used their capital to inform their decisions, although those paths are murkier than they were with prior generations of executives, so on and so forth. So, of course, he starts with the number one pick, which, as we know, is currently owned by your Tennessee Titans. And I'm going to read to you the trade proposal that he has. He explains it afterwards. But, Derek, I'm just going to read to you the trade that he has. And you tell me, just based on what you hear, if you would take it, okay? His trade is a three-way trade between the Tennessee Titans, the Atlanta Falcons, and the Cleveland Browns. So, in this hypothetical trade, the Titans would receive the number 2 pick in the draft. So they would trade with the Browns and move down one spot. They would get the number 2 pick in the draft. They would receive a 3rd round pick, number 67 overall, a 2026 2nd round pick from the Browns, and Kirk Cousins from the Falcons. So they would move down one spot, have the 2nd overall pick instead of the 1st overall pick. They would get a 3rd round pick, which they do not have, a 2nd round pick next year, and Kirk Cousins. The Falcons would receive a 2026 7th round pick from the Titans. The Browns would get the number 1 overall pick and a 6th round pick next year from the Titans. So just based on that information, would you do it?
I would think about it from this standpoint. Why is Cleveland, if I still want a young quarterback in this draft, I can move out of number 1 spot. Why is Cleveland moving to the number 1 spot? Why do they want to move? Is it because they are afraid that I'm going to draft, because I get the pick of the litter? I'm going to draft Hunter, like fool everybody and draft either Hunter or Abdul Carter, because they may want one of these guys. So if they are afraid of that, they move up with me, they get their guy. I may still be able to get the quarterback that I want, or I can potentially, as we go forward, I can move down again, but that's not a part of this trade. But I get it. That's my concern. If I want a quarterback in this draft high, and I can still get a quarterback in this draft high, I do it. I don't know if I can take Kirk Cousins' salary. I don't know if I can do that. He's a quarterback on the downside of his career, and it's quickly. He's coming off a season where it was not good, the second half, so much so that they benched him. He's having issues. He just came off an Achilles, and then now it's his shoulder or his elbow, something like that. He has too many problems. He has 3 things working against him. Why I wouldn't do it, because of Kirk Cousins. He's getting older. He's coming off injury, and he's making too much money.
So here is how Bill Barnwell explains why he made this trade. He writes in part, quote, "The Titans appear to be leaning toward drafting a quarterback, given their only addition under center this offseason has been veteran Brandon Allen. Cam Ward seems to have separated himself from Shedeur Sanders, but it's tough to find a consensus in the league that he's anything close to a no-doubt solution. There are superstars available at critical positions elsewhere in this draft, and the Titans aren't one player away from competing. What if they're bluffing? What if the Titans aren't sure about Ward and have more confidence in adding Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter? Instead of adding Ward to solve their quarterback problem, what if there's a veteran who could step in under center in the short term while they wait to find a prospect they like? The purpose of bluffing," this answers one of your questions. The purpose of bluffing would be to get the Browns to pay up for the privilege of ensuring that they'll get Ward. This played out in 2017 when the 49ers had no intention of drafting Mitch Trubisky with the 2nd overall pick. They still convinced the Bears they were willing to trade the pick to someone else who wanted Trubisky and landed 2 third-round picks and a 4th rounder for moving down to number 3. So here, Barnwell writes, the Browns send a 3rd-round pick and their 2nd rounder in 2026 to move up one spot, and they get a 6th-round pick in next year's draft. It's a similar premium to what the Bears paid to move up one spot for Trubisky. Cleveland won't want to sacrifice picks, but when a franchise quarterback is involved, teams usually don't let a stray selection or 2 stand in the way of getting a deal done. And now here's the part about Kirk Cousins. Barnwell writes, quote, "The Falcons would unload their wildly expensive backup quarterback in Cousins, whose $10 million roster bonus for 2026 was guaranteed earlier this month. With Cousins due $37.5 million between his 2025 base salary and 2026 bonus, the Falcons would eat $25 million to get this deal done, saving them the remaining $12.5. They would also get a day 3 pick, which would seem generous since they clearly have no use for Cousins. The rules for underwater quarterback contracts, however, are different than the rules for players at every other position. Barnwell, this is a longer article, but we'll conclude here. As for the Titans, if they aren't interested in Ward or Sanders, Cousins allows them to take a shot on the quarterback who was playing reasonably well before he suffered a midseason shoulder injury. Through week 9, he ranked 12th in total QBR, nestled between Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff. He was averaging nearly 8 yards per attempt and had thrown 17 touchdown passes against 7 picks. Cousins would be a rental for 2025 and potentially 2026, who buys the Titans some time to land on a better long-term solution than Ward. So now that you've heard the explanation from Barnwell, does that change your mind at all?
No, it doesn't, because he basically, at the end of the article, well, at the end of what you read, he basically, he's making my argument why I don't want this trade, at least not with Kirk Cousins as a package. Shoulder injury, mid-season, shoulder injury. Oh, he didn't mention the Achilles the year before. Again, he's telling me that he's making too much money, and I understand that there is a difference between a running back getting older and having these injuries, or a wide receiver, as opposed to a quarterback. The quarterback's going to get bumped up more. He's going to get overvalued a little bit more because of what you can do from that position and what he has shown in his career. But he made my argument. The shoulder injury, he didn't mention the Achilles injury, and he has a enormous contract. I don't want to touch it. Why do I want to touch that? Now, if he seems more on the downcline, now if I get him, he has these same shoulder injuries 3 games in. Now I'm stuck with him. This is where I think bad franchises makes situations even worse. When you don't have a quarterback, and you haven't had a quarterback, and you've been wallowing in this place of just badness around your organization. So you're trying so hard that you go out and you overpay for a injured, aging quarterback. Ask the Jets what that brought them. And I get it. He wasn't injured before he got there. But ask them what that brought them. It didn't bring them much. You can go down a line with other teams bringing in quarterbacks that had been injured the previous season. It doesn't look good. So because he's a part of this, I don't want to touch it. He's an expiring, aging, high-price quarterback that his best days are far behind him.
So we'll continue.
And I love Kirk Cousins.
I know you do. Go green, go white.
Exactly.
I hear you. So this was the proposed hypothetical trade from Bill Barnwell on ESPN.com. We'll get your reaction just after I read the trade once again. And I want to hear from all of you at 615-737-1025. If you would do this, if you were Mike Borgonzi, you would trade the number 1 overall pick down 1 spot to the Browns. So you would have the 2nd overall pick. The Browns would take the number 1 overall pick. You would get a 3rd round pick, which you don't have, a 2026 2nd round pick, and Kirk Cousins. The Falcons would get a 7th round pick in 2026 for being involved in this. The Browns would get the 1st overall pick and a 2026 6th round pick from the Titans. So let us know, 615-737-1025. One texter says, Cousins sucks. His arm is gone. I'd rather watch Levis than old man Kirk. I would sign Flacco before trading for Cousins.
Hey, listen, if you're just talking about pure arm talent right now, then I am going Joe Flacco. He hasn't had the injuries, and he doesn't have this enormous price tag, hanging from him either. So is he Kirk Cousins, year in and year out? No, he's not. His numbers don't bear it out. But his arm is still live. He hasn't been dealing with any injury. And yes, he's older. I believe he may be right around the same age as Kirk Cousins. I think Joe's close to 40, if not 40.
Kirk Cousins is 36.
Yeah.
Flacco is 40.
Yeah. So Joe's a little bit older, but because of your elbow injury, because of your Achilles injury, you and Joe may just be on the same plane. So I'm going with the guy with the live arm before I go with Kirk Cousins.
Barnwell writes, while moving down, the Titans would ensure themselves an elite prospect at one of the most expensive positions in football. With the Browns moving up for a quarterback, Tennessee would be ensured its pick of the rest of the draft with Carter and Hunter as the potential targets. Carter would immediately become their best edge rusher and give the Titans an actual position of strength along their defensive line, with Jeffrey Simmons and T'Vondre Sweat forming an excellent tackle duo. Hunter would start at cornerback across from L'Jarius Sneed and afford the Titans the ability to play man coverage more often in 2025. With little on the depth chart after Calvin Ridley, Hunter would also see reps at wide receiver. He writes, Barnwell, of course. Is this likely? Of course not. The Titans let backup quarterback Mason Rudolph leave and signed pass rusher Draymond Jones to a one-year deal to replace Harold Landry, which suggests that they're likely targeting Ward at number one. Even if they weren't taking Ward, the Browns might not take the bait. The Falcons are telling everyone who will listen that they want to keep Cousins. Again, I would be surprised if the Titans traded out of the top spot. I would just be less surprised than just about any other year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, and I've said this before. I think the Titans they are resolute if they, with Cam Ward. I think they believe in their mind, if nobody wants to draft out of this, if nobody wants to trade, we'll draft Cam Ward. Plain and simple. We're good with that. So, anything outside of one of these deals you can't refuse. I think this is a deal you could refuse if I'm the Titans. I think this is a deal that you would say, nah, that's okay. Thank you, but no thank you. We're drafting Cam Ward. I think you would have to come with a little bit more in order for the Titans to come off that spot. And that's just me. I haven't heard anything from anyone else, but I just believe that in order to get that number one pick, if you are that so hellbound on drafting Cam Ward, if you and your organization have come to a consensus on Cam Ward's the guy, then you need to show me. You need to show me and move up. If not, we'll take him.
If I recall correctly, last week, Charles Robinson, when he was on with Robbie and Rexrow, Charles Robinson, the Yahoo Sports NFL insider, said that the Titans' asking price for the number one pick with the Giants is at least 3 first-round picks or something of that value.
What does that? If indeed that is true, 3 first-round picks, who's going to give that up?
I personally can't think of anybody unless the Giants are incredibly desperate.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, the Giants just signed Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean that they're not going to draft a quarterback with the 3rd overall pick. Mm-hmm. Shedeur Sanders could still land in New York with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. And don't forget, of course, about Tommy DeVito. But I'm thinking of the remaining teams who could realistically make that trade. And I feel like I've heard the Saints a lot recently. I believe the Saints have the 9th pick in the NFL draft. They still have Derek Carr, but that feels like a stopgap. So it feels like if you're going to go from 9 to 1, it may take a significant deal like that. But I can't imagine, at least right now, a team willing to pay that price that Charles Robinson laid out.
And I say that because, listen, if you have something that somebody else wants, or let's just say, you and a wife, y'all got invited to a dinner, and you cool with going to the dinner, but you really don't want to go, but she don't want to go, you gonna ask her because her answer is going to be no. So it's like, we can go, but I'm gonna ask the missus if because her word means a lot. So if we don't go, then I'm cool. But if she said let's go, then I'm good. So she can never say, well, you didn't want to go to the dinner. You didn't want to go with my friends. So you're giving her the opportunity, you know, to sort of make the decision. That's what the Titans are doing here. They're gonna make it. They're gonna put it at a point where you make the decision. You tell us because we're good. We'll go or we'll take them. But you tell us. You tell us how you really feel about them. If you say you're not giving up the 3 first rounders, then okay, I keep it. But if you're willing to give up the 3 first rounders, then okay, here you go. And now we can dance. We can go and dance. We can have fun. But if you're not willing to give it up, I take it. So it's like you're putting something out there that you know no one will accept, but no one can ever say, well, he didn't throw it out there because you know what the decisions they're going to make. I'm asking for 3 first round picks. I know no one in this year's NFL draft is going to give that up. So I'm going to make that very loud or I'm going to leak it out because I know ain't nobody going to give it up. So I'm going to keep the pick and I'm going to draft Cam Ward. I think that could, if indeed that is true, that is what the Titans are putting out. And that may not be a good analogy, but I rolled with it. I just kept it going. But if that is indeed the case, then I'm going to make sure I allow that to get out because then that will tell me if someone is desperate enough to pick up that phone and say, you know what? I heard you're willing to give up the spot for 3 first round picks. Here you go. But if you don't do that, I'm cool. But I know you're not going to do that. So I'm telling my fans, this is what I want. Nobody wanted to give it to me. So I'm going to draft Cam Ward.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts on the mock trade proposed by Bill Barnwell at ESPN.com involving the Titans, the Browns, and the Falcons, where basically the Titans move down 1 spot to number 2, the Browns move up 1 spot to number 1, and the Falcons give Kirk Cousins to the Titans to be their short-term quarterback. 615-737-1025. I also just want to know that I've been shamed into removing my hood after I saw David James' tweet where he makes me look like Rick Moranis from Spaceballs.
No. I didn't make you look like that. You made yourself look like that.
Exactly.
I didn't realize that my hood was so billowy. But after I saw that picture, I'm not putting my hood back up. 615-737-1025. Someone who does not look like Lord Dark Helmet from Spaceballs. Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst, will join us coming up next. We'll get back into the quarterback discussion. But before we do that, tune into 94.9 The Fan today as the Sounds take on Gwinnett. Pregame begins at 2:50. First pitch is at 3:05. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds Baseball on 94.9 The Fan is presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. D-Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, joined on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. By Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst, who has been all over my television lately. Tim getting a lot of well-deserved television time. Thank you, my friend, for not big-timing us here on D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick.
They work around your schedule. You know that, right? Like, that's how this works.
We appreciate that. So I heard you yesterday on NFL Live. You've mentioned this on our show as well. Your comp on Shedeur Sanders being in that Andy Dalton range. And when we've talked about that, we brought it up yesterday. I think a lot of football fans hear that and they have this sort of visceral reaction like, Andy Dalton? You don't want to use a top draft pick on someone who could be Andy Dalton, despite, as you've laid out, the successful longevity that Andy Dalton has had as an NFL quarterback. My question to you is, when you make that comparison, as you did yesterday on NFL Live, when you talk to your colleagues about it, when you talk to people around the league about it, what reaction do you get from them?
I think that people understand the comparison. Now, I would also say, like, I think that reaction is very different than, like, the reaction that my phone was indicating. And I say that, like, look, if anyone listened to everything I said yesterday, like, they would realize, like, when I say Andy Dalton, it's a compliment. Andy Dalton, I think, is in year 17. Andy Dalton, took an organization to the playoffs, I think, 4 different times. Andy Dalton has thrown over 250 touchdowns. Like, I just remember making a comparison one time on Teddy Bridgewater. And I said, look, I think his upside, like his full upside, is Alex Smith. And it was like, how dare you, like, disrespect Teddy Bridgewater like that? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, are you kidding me? Like, Teddy Bridgewater, and even today, Teddy Bridgewater would love to have had Alex Smith's career. So, I do think something like sometimes what happens in this comparison is that, like, every, offensive tackle that maybe people think is a first rounder, like, they're not all Jonathan Ogden. Like, they're not. Like, some of them need to be Jeff Backus. You're like, who's Jeff Backus? It's like, well, the Lions drafted him in the first round and he played tackle for like a decade for him. And like, is he going to end up with a gold jacket? No. But was he a really good player for them? Yeah. And you know what else he wasn't? He wasn't a bust. So, like, when I say what I say about Andy Dalton, like, or Shedeur Sanders, like, and I actually think there's a decision to be made. Now, I think this is what you were alluding to. Does it make sense to draft Andy Dalton with a 3rd overall pick? Like, you didn't win a Super Bowl. You're really talking about rarefied air, right? When you're talking about the top of round 1. But listen, Mac Jones was a 1st round pick, top 3 pick. Trey Lance was a top 3 pick. Like, how about if you just got a guy that you knew could play? Like, would he stabilize the position for you for a decade and lead you to the postseason? Would you take that? Like, I think some teams would.
So Shedeur Sanders, Tim, is a fascinating prospect to me just because of the wide-ranging opinions on him. Your colleague at ESPN, Jeremy Fowler, had a report over the weekend where he mentioned that he had, I think, canvassed maybe a half a dozen NFL talent evaluators, and 4 of them said that they did not have a 1st round grade on Shedeur Sanders. I'm wondering if you think that we could see a Aaron Rodgers type slide in this draft for Shedeur Sanders, and what the conditions would have to be in the draft for Shedeur Sanders to fall that far.
Yeah, I definitely think that could happen. What I would say is it would really be just determined by, like, look, Andy Dalton, let's use Andy Dalton as the comp. Andy Dalton was not a first-round draft pick, not because he was not a really good quarterback at TCU, and not because he wasn't like a pretty good athlete. Like Andy Dalton, like Cincinnati ran zone read stuff with him before it was like an in vogue thing in the NFL. So like the conditions would be, people are looking at Shedeur Sanders and saying he's smart, he knows how to play the position. I think he can play at this level, but like there are all these other players that are really gifted, and just like physically the traits are exactly what you're looking for. And look, Jackson Dart is going to have traits that are more impressive. Look, Tyler Shuck from Louisville is going to have more impressive traits. So, the conditions would be, look, Cam Ward goes 1 to the Titans. The Browns say, we're not drafting a quarterback at 2. The Giants either say, look, we're not taking a quarterback at this high at 3. And so now you get into like, you're falling deeper into, like 9, 10, 11, 12 range. You start looking at teams, are they quarterback needy or not? So look, could I see it happen? Yeah. Look, I think Titans fans probably remember like what Will Levis went through, what Malik Willis went through. Like it happens often. Just it's a super high profile player we're talking about.
Tim Hasselbeck joining us on D-Mace, Vangin, and Donick. Tim, you're one of your other colleagues at ESPN, Matt Miller. Speaking of comps, he said he thinks Cam Ward's player comparison is Jordan Love, highlighting the arm strength and the playmaking ability, among other things. Do you agree with Matt Miller on that? Do you see some Jordan Love and Cam Ward?
I think some. That I can't say that like if you would have asked me, like I'd be like, like I don't know. That's not probably. I think in some ways, just like ability to throw the football, talent to throw the football, I get it. And Jordan Love, I think moved better. When you looked at him play in college, and not that Cam Ward doesn't move well, but like he just, in terms of frame and physique and, kind of twitchiness, I don't have them necessarily similar, but I do think from ability to make throws that, that I would say is, well above average in terms of, not average, but like an elite trait. Yeah, I think they both possess that when you watch them play in college, for sure.
We'll talk with Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst and head coach of the Ensworth Tigers. Now, Tim, let's go back to this your comparison of Cam Ward and Andy Dalton. He's more so Andy Dalton, but not just really that, but if you would take that with the number 1 pick, and usually that guy is a guy that's going to sort of push your organization. I get that. But I look back in prior years, whether it was Jim Plunkett, who started with New England. I think Jim was the number 1 overall pick, somewhere around there.
I think you're right. Yep.
Yeah. He started with New England. Then he went to San Fran, but we know him from where? Oakland. So to me, Jim Plunkett was a good quarterback, but maybe he was one of those quarterbacks that needed to be surrounded with good talent too. There are quarterbacks that can elevate teams, and there are quarterbacks that just do their job efficiently, and you add people around them, and away we go. Jalen Hurts. You look at,
let me ask you,
the Lions quarterback. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me ask you about this one. Yeah, so like Jared Goff, what category would you put Matt Ryan in?
Matt Ryan would be, as far as elite quarterbacks, not elite quarterbacks.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, hey, he's really good.
Yes.
Drafting him high, surround him with the right talent. Like, what do you think?
I would draft him number 1.
Yeah. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm sort of leading to. Matthew Stafford, same guy, drafted number 1. He took his team to a couple playoffs, 1 or 2, but it wasn't until he went to LA where they surrounded him with a team and he just let his talent go. So so I'm not sure that the Titan fan base, and tell me if this is what you're sort of seeing too. I don't think the Titan fan base understands that sometimes, not all of them, but some, that getting a good quarterback sometimes is just as good as getting that quarterback, because it's all about surrounding your team after that.
Yeah. I feel like I say all the time, it's a dependent position.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't care who you are, it's still a dependent position. And then there are obviously a few exceptions. Like Peyton Manning was probably going to make every scenario better. Tom Brady maybe the same thing. And I think that, there's certain eras of football where you can say, look, Patrick Mahomes, like, he's one of those guys, like, he's making everywhere better. Josh Allen is probably making everywhere better. But the list of guys that you can say, hey, he's going to go there and make everywhere better is short. And we're living in a pretty good time right now where the list is maybe as long as it's ever been, right? Lamar Jackson, maybe Jaden Daniels at this point. Like, I think it's about as long as it's ever been. But traditionally, it's usually less than 5 guys that you can say that's the case. So what that means is, like, that next tier is, hey, he's Matt Ryan. Like, he's as good, but, like, he still needs Julio Jones or Roddy White or whoever the receiver is, or Tony Gonzalez, whoever you were going to put around him. And then there's that tier that's, below that where you're like, honestly, man, like, it doesn't matter who you put around him. Like, he just can't get it done. Like, I literally think that's what it is. And so I think if you look at it through that lens, then I think that look, and you can make the argument if Andy Dalton was good enough to win a Super Bowl or whatever. But, like, if you look at it through that lens and you say, yeah, look, no, we just need him to be good enough that when surrounded with the best talent, we can win a Super Bowl. And if the guy can do that, then yeah, he is worth drafting at the very top. And that's why I brought up Matt Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
The Dolphins didn't think he was talented enough at 1, so they went Jake Long. And Jake Long was a good player, but, like, the Falcons were better off because they drafted the quarterback at 3.
Now, when looking at the Titans, and more than likely, I think they are probably asking too much. As I told Adam, they're probably asking too much on purpose, knowing that no one will move up to the number 1 spot. So let's just assume the Titans like Cam Ward enough, they draft him, and off they go. 2 through 10 or 15. How many trades you think then will be made? Because I think that's where the trades are going to come, not necessarily for the number 1 pick, but anything between that and that first round.
Yeah, I think it's a good observation. Like, I do think there'll be a lot of movement in there. Look, whether it's, moving up because you have a strong feeling on a running back or an edge rusher or a tackle, like, I think the movement there will be significant. So if you're saying, like, 2 through 12, like, how many trades do we see through there? Look, I think we could see 3 or 4 through there. Like, it feels like it would be a lot, but, with the rumors on quarterback, the fact that, there are certain positions that, there seem to be a fair amount of depth. And then, honestly, a lot of teams that are picking in that range that don't need a quarterback, or you wouldn't think are looking for a quarterback. So people trying to get up into that mix to ensure that they get one. I do think that could happen.
Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst, joining us here on D. Mays, Fingen, and Donnick. By the way, Tim, I hear it's your dad's birthday today.
Big 7-0.
Hey, happy birthday.
That's not an April Fool's joke. Yep, big 7-0.
Happy 70th birthday to Don Hasselbeck.
There we go.
Send our regards.
The architect of it all.
Thank you, Tim. We'll talk next week.
See you, fellas.
Yep.
615-737-1025. We will react to what Tim had to say. We'll also take your reaction as well at 615-737-1025. Later today on 94.9 The Fan, tune in for Vanderbilt baseball as the Commodores host Western Kentucky. Pre-game begins at 5:45 and first pitch is at 6. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. D-Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. It's time for the 4th annual 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament. Cromwell Media, along with partners Fox 17, Outfront Media, and Social Indoor, are proud to announce we will be back at Hermitage Golf Course on Thursday, May 29th, to make a difference while having a great time. You can join us and a few guest media members, athletes, and musicians as we raise money for Fold of Honor. Donations will go to provide life-changing scholarships to families of America's fallen or disabled military and first responders. Sign up to play or sponsor at 615open.com. During the Tim Hasselbeck segment, Derek, we received a text message from an unnamed texter on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, that said, good quarterbacks are easy to find in the draft and free agency. No need to draft a bottom 10 quarterback as number one. Now, the texter does not clarify if he or she is discussing Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders.
Exactly. Bottom 10.
But again, it goes back to the conversation we were having yesterday, and you were talking about it with Tim as well, that the overall perception of this quarterback group, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shuck, Jackson Dart, it does not stack up to last year's class, headlined by Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams and Drake May. And the question we asked yesterday was, are we underrating Cam Ward because of the discourse surrounding the quarterback class? Because the quarterback class as a whole seems underwhelming, Cam Ward is being dragged down because of his peers, as opposed to rising above the rest. So you were talking about it with Tim. Tim said it well, I thought, that quarterbacks are a dependent position. Now, the best of the best can make chicken salad out of chicken bleep. But most quarterbacks, they need the perfect or close to perfect environment to succeed. So now if you want to question whether the Tennessee Titans have that environment for presumably Cam Ward to succeed, you can certainly question that. But I am starting to wonder if even myself, if I am dragging Cam Ward down because of the perception of the overall quarterback class, that yes, Cam Ward could be indeed worthy of the number one overall pick. Am I bringing him down because the quarterbacks as a whole are underwhelmed?
I do truly believe that is indeed the case. Because again, I think if Cam Ward having the numbers that he had this year was then put in last year's draft as they were from the beginning, if he was coming out right when those guys were coming out and the process started early January, right as the bowl games, when teams are finished with their bowl games and majority of the games are just college football playoff games with some other bowl games later here and there. If Cam Ward was put in that draft based upon the numbers he had this year, his play this year, I think there would have been a different talk. We can always, they could say, well, I'm going to grade him now and then compared to the guys last year. I get that. But if he was in that actual draft, because remember, nobody thought J.J. McCarthy, his name started to, really drum up, pick up some steam later in the process. And even with that, people still didn't think he would go that high. He ended up going 10th overall. Michael Penix, people didn't think he would go that high. He ended up going 8th overall. Bo Nix, no one thought that he was going that high. He ended up going 12th overall. So to me, if Cam Ward was in that mix, I think he would have been amongst the top 15 drafted last year. Based upon the class, how many guys were truly in there that were first round worthy, not necessarily top 10 pick worthy, but they were first, early, second round worthy. These guys went early. Why? Because there were run-on quarterbacks and no one wanted to be left out. And there were enough good quarterbacks that you can justify. There's not that many in this draft. There's only one, Cam Ward. And because there's only one, now they're comparing him to the people outside of his position because there's no one close to him in his position. Now we say, well, he's not Abdul Carter. He's not Travis Hunter. He's not this. No, he's not. He has proven himself. Like he told the Titans, I'm about to solidify this thing. He's proven himself. He is head and shoulders above the other guys. But that may be hurting him as well.
615-737-1025. Again, we asked the question, are we underrating Cam Ward because of the discourse surrounding the quarterback class this year versus recent quarterback classes? 615-737-1025. But I want to, coming up next, I want to turn our attention towards Shedeur Sanders. Brian Callahan discussed Shedeur Sanders yesterday at the AFC Coaches Breakfast, which I learned actually involves breakfast, which I was glad to hear about from Teron Davenport. Brian Callahan discussed Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders Pro Day is coming up in just a couple of days. I do want to get into Shedeur Sanders because I do find him to be the most fascinating prospect in this draft. 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game. D-Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are proudly presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Willie Donick out today. He will rejoin us tomorrow. The Predators are in Columbus, Ohio to take on the Blue Jackets tonight. Puck drop at 6, pregame at 5, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie had the opportunity to go watch his son Mahoney play baseball for Denison, which is also located in Ohio. So who are we to stand in the way of Willie Donick having the opportunity to watch his baby boy play college baseball?
Absolutely. Well,
That's what we're here for.
his only boy.
His only boy. Will Donick, according to the bio
Exactly.
on Mahoney's
Not Willie.
player page. Will Donick. I don't know any Wills.
Professional Will.
Yeah, I don't know a Will. I mean, I know a Willie. Yes.
He doesn't look like a Will. He looks like a Willie. Somebody's going to clip that and take that out of context, I'm sure.
When I think of a
For
Will,
sure.
I think of Will Smith. For some reason, I just think of Will Smith.
It's also
The
April.
baseball player?
It's also April Fool's Day for all of those who celebrate.
What if
April
this was
Fool's
just
Day.
an April Fool's joke by Willie to say, I don't want to come in today?
Yeah, well, it's a pretty good one, if that is indeed true. But you know what I say? You couldn't fool your mother on the foolingest day of your life if you had an electrified fooling machine.
Okay, answer me this.
Sure.
Okay, on April Fool's Day, sports related, because obviously we are a sports show.
Indeed,
the
we
best
are.
Sports show. Is it okay to do a sports April Fool's,
Such as?
such as saying something happened when it didn't happen in the world of sports? Is that okay?
Ooh.
Because of what we're tasked to do each and every day.
It depends on how, if it's trivial, like if
Uh-huh.
it's a small thing,
Mhm.
like if I came on the air right now, which I'm about to do for the
Uh-huh.
purpose of this argument, and said the Tennessee Titans have traded all of the picks. They've traded all of their picks for Patrick Mahomes.
I think that's too hard. That's too easy to not believe.
Okay.
Okay, say this one for instance, because I threw this one out to y'all earlier. I saw something quickly. I was just scrolling through and I saw something quickly. But I know in this business, you gotta go deeper and deeper before you actually put something out there. So knowing that it's April Fool's, I looked at it and I asked the fellas, like, man, I said, whoa, did the Baltimore Ravens trade for Max Crosby and give up their 27th pick in the draft in the first round? And I looked at it and I'm like, nah, that didn't happen. And I'm thinking like, it's April Fool's. Something like that where it's not too far-fetched because Max Crosby had been wanting out of, Vegas for a minute. Then
But
they
he
ended
did
up
just
signing-
sign a
he just signed a
gigantic contract.
gigantic contract.
Gigantic contract.
So is
Yeah.
it okay to come out and say something like that where it's more believable than not? I'm not going to believe that the Titans gave up all their picks for Patrick Mahomes because I don't think Kansas City would take all of the Titans pick for this year and next year and give up Patrick Mahomes. I don't think they would do that.
One texter, Nevada Josh, says somebody did do that. They posted that Aaron Rodgers announced his retirement.
That's like, yeah, right.
I think it's only funny if like the athletes did it.
Yeah,
Like if Tom
Uh-huh,
Brady
yeah.
would say, I'm coming back, that I would say is kind of funny. And then
Okay.
did the April Fool's joke, but you have to do it right under the tweet. Like
Yes.
you have the tweet and then you have the thread.
April Fools.
April Fools.
Okay.
That's when it becomes funny.
It works. Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. It works better when the actual person is saying it. Like Tom Brady, I'm coming out of retirement. I just gave my notice to CBS, or is it Fox? Fox. And I will be returning back to the NFL. I think people would believe that, but he can say it
Okay.
because it's him.
Chuck on our text line says, D-Mace, no, it is not okay to do a sports April Fool's. I still can't get over what you did to all of us listeners last year. I truly believed you.
But it was me.
I don't recall what you did last year.
Well, I told everybody I was coming out of retirement.
That's yeah.
And going to try out for the Nashville Cats. But that was me. it was me personally saying something that I was going to do. Now I couldn't report like, oh, Kevin Dyson or Blaine Bishop is cut out of retirement, and going to play for the Nashville Cats, or they're working out for. I can't do that because that's them. And then their phone's gonna be inundated with calls. I should have did that.
Hey, if you did come out of
They're
retirement,
my guy.
if you did come out of retirement for the Nashville Cats, you know who would be calling your touchdowns? Chase McCabe
Yeah, there you go.
and Big Joe Dubin.
There we go. I should have said, I'm hearing word that Kevin Dyson walked into the Titans facility with cleats in his hand in the bubble. Oh,
I think we should avoid.
I think that's dangerous territory.
I think we should avoid.
Yes. Oh man.
Chase has actually texted in and said, Derek, do you remember when Stephen Eddy and Jeff Fisher did that prank on April Fools where Hope Hines with Channel 5 reported they got traded? I forgot where, Baltimore or something like that, but they were all in on it.
Yeah, but they were all in on it. So you can do that. And he's right. But you can do that when everyone within the party understands. But if it's some rogue thing, I can't.
If it's just one of those those troll Twitter accounts,
yeah,
that's not funny.
Yeah,
but it like that has Adam Schefter,
yeah,
or like that
with an extra R.
Yeah, with
yeah,
extra
you don't
R.
realize it until
that stuff's not funny. But like the ones that like, where it's like, here's the tweet: someone got traded to some team, and on the bottom it says April Fools.
Yeah,
like that's I think is funny. But like again, it's
like you got to have the person. You got to have the person involved in it. Like, so to me,
like someone saying confirmed sources.
Confirmed. Yeah, exactly. Confirmed. So I couldn't just say, flippantly that this person was here. I can say that I went, but I was just wondering because, I maybe thought about an April Fool's this morning.
We'll try not to do something that gets us kicked off the air between now and 2:00. But Shedeur Sanders will have his pro day. Travis Hunter will have his pro day. Colorado, as a team, will have its pro day on April 4th, which is Friday. Then the Titans will have Shedeur Sanders in for a private workout next week, I believe next Tuesday. Brian Callahan said yesterday at the league meetings, quote, our interactions with him, meaning Sanders, have been really positive. We had him in for a 30 visit on top of it, and then we're heading out to his pro day, but I've really enjoyed him. I've liked his demeanor. I like the way he comes across. He's confident without being over the top, which is a good thing. All of our interactions have been positive. I'm excited to see what he can bring. And we discussed this with Tim Hasselbeck, and we have the clip. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN over the weekend had a report on SportsCenter about Shedeur Sanders and where he could fall in the NFL draft. This was Jeremy Fowler on ESPN SportsCenter last weekend.
Yeah, I mean, the people I've talked to believe that Shedeur Sanders is under consideration in that top three. You're talking Browns at 2, Giants at 3, although Abdul Carter, the pass rusher, seems to have momentum a little bit for the Browns at 2. Here's the tricky part with Sanders. Before I walked in here, I texted with a half dozen or so high-level personnel people with teams. I asked them a simple question. Do you have a first-round grade on Shedeur Sanders? Meaning, do you see him as a first-round talent? 4 said no, more of a second-rounder. 2 said yes, that he's a mid to late first-round pick for them. So we all know quarterbacks get pushed up. That's the way it goes. He's certainly worthy, it looks like, of a first-round pick. But to go in the top 3, that's what teams are grappling with right now. They see Cam Ward as that type of player. They don't see Sanders as that. So maybe the Saints at 9, if he starts to fall a little bit, they've been doing a lot of homework on quarterbacks. Yeah. Somebody will stop him if he does fall out of there.
That was Jeremy Fowler on SportsCenter over the weekend, texting with personnel people. 4 of them, according to Jeremy Fowler, did not have a first-round grade on Shedeur Sanders. 2 others had a mid to late first-round grade on Shedeur Sanders. And there were a lot of people who earmarked Shedeur Sanders to the New York Giants. They signed Jameis Winston. They signed Russell Wilson. Now, there have been reports that those 2 signings don't mean that the Giants couldn't also draft Shedeur Sanders. But I feel like the outcome for Sanders, Derek, in this draft, I feel like the outcomes are wide-ranging. I could see Shedeur Sanders being picked near the top of the draft. I could see Shedeur Sanders falling late into the first round. And that's why I find him to be the most fascinating prospect. I know that you have a lot of time for Shedeur Sanders. Teron Davenport really likes Shedeur Sanders. There are people around the league who like Shedeur Sanders, but it just feels like the outcome in the draft a month from now, or less than a month from now. We are in the month of the NFL draft, thank God. It feels like there are so many outcomes, and that's why I find him to be such a fascinating prospect.
Yeah, it has been interesting how where Shedeur Sanders started to where he is now. But I understand too that it's neither about those two things. It's about where you end up and what you do once you get there. So, but it is interesting because my brother told me that a long time ago. I said, listen, it's not where you draft it or where you go, it's what you do when you get there. So I think Shedeur is sort of falling in that space. We've seen this before. Aaron Rodgers, he fell down in the draft.
Will Levis.
All the way to 24. And we see how his career has been for whatever reason. Will Levis fall in the draft to the second round, where at the beginning, you had people, Mel Kiper. He's the number one pick. He's the best quarterback in the draft, only to be drafted in the second round. And it just seems like he's not a starting quarterback at this point in his career. So you're going to see individuals, for whatever reason, they're going to fall in the draft. But this one is it's because if you look at Shedeur Sanders and you say, what do I want? What would be my criteria for a starting NFL quarterback, a really good NFL quarterback? I'm not even talking about elite quarterback, because yes, everybody wants that and everybody knows what that looks like, but elite quarterbacks are not in every draft. Okay. So if you have these criterias for what you think a winning quarterback is for you, a guy that you can draft, somewhere in the first round, I would tend to think before all of this draft stuff, let's just say before the combine, because that's when everything started to change for whatever reason.
It really did feel like coming out of the combine, that's where the separation began between Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. At least to me, that's when I started sensing it.
Exactly. So, even before that,
despite the fact that neither of them participated,
did anything. Exactly.
And Shedeur Sanders went to the East-West Shrine Bowl and didn't do anything there either.
So it's like before that, if you had to list what you wanted in a winning quarterback, I think that Shedeur fit the bill. Smart, good arm, make good decisions, don't put the ball in harm's way, has some athletic ability. He's poised in the pocket. He can stand there knowing he's about to get blasted by a defensive end and still deliver the ball. He's a leader. He's been able to lead. So those things, that's 8 things. And I'm sure there are more things, but he fits what you want. That was before the combine. And then after the combine, it was like, yeah, he fits those, but he's not elite. He's not this guy. He's not that guy. And I'm thinking, like, what happened between, you saying, or everyone saying that, man, he sort of excuse me. Maybe I can't say that word. He fits what we want from a quarterback. How do you go from that to saying, like, this dude he's not even a first round, he's a second round guy, and now all of a sudden he can't lead and he can't be a really good starter in this league? Again, if you want him to be an elite quarterback, yes, it doesn't seem like that's where he's headed. But if you're saying, I want a really good quarterback, a quarterback that can lead, a quarterback that can do these things that a quarterback needs to do. He fits that bill, at least to me. Now, we won't know until he actually gets in the NFL and starts playing. But I don't understand, and maybe because of all the negative talk, during that time. His dad wants to be a part of this. He's arrogant. Look at what he's doing. He's making all of this stuff.
Brian Callahan again said that he's confident without being over the top.
Exactly. But many put him in the category of what? Over the top.
Because of his father.
His father. Yeah. So that may have, I think more than anything, that has hurt him. I really believe more than anything, because I think if you turn on the tape, he's still a first round pick. Now when he gets in the NFL, he has to prove it. But if you're just looking at the talent, what he did, what he was able to accomplish, what he did for that university, he's a first round pick. But I think all that negative talk at the beginning hurt him. So whoever started, they did exactly what they wanted. It happened exactly the way they wanted it to. Now he falls in the draft, and he's going to get picked by one of those teams that I'm sure was sort of pushing that narrative.
So Mel Kiper, I don't have the clip, but Mel Kiper was on Get Up this morning talking about Shedeur Sanders, and he was talking about quarterbacks sliding in the draft. And this is what he said, quote, "It's happened a lot over the years. I went back to 1970. If you want the best opportunity to get a quarterback, based on the numbers, that's in the top 5 of the draft. Now, that sliding quarterback, we've had 8. According to my rankings and my mocks that I've had going back to 1970, 6 of those 8 were big hits. 2 were busts. That was Jimmy Clausen and Brady Quinn, the 2 Notre Dame quarterbacks. So if Shedeur does slide, it bodes pretty well for him and the team that drafts him. The top 5 is the best spot to get that guy, though, in terms of the history of the draft. But in terms of Shedeur, New Orleans is sitting there at number 9, Pittsburgh sitting there at number 20, the Rams are sitting there at number 26. So again, you talk about if we don't get Shedeur, we can get somebody else. What if those guys are gone? You're not going to have like 5 or 6 guys after the top 1 or 2. It's not going to happen. So if you identify the 1 or 2 guys you really like, you want to move forward with as your developmental quarterback, you better get one of those guys. You can't lose them. So this notion, trade out, move around, do this, there's no guarantee you're going to get that player. But I find that to be interesting, and I would like to go back and see if I can find this in print. But since, according to Mel Kiper, since he did his mocks going back to 1970, 6 of the 8 quarterbacks that slid, 6 of them were big hits, 2 were busts, Jimmy Clausen and Brady Quinn. I would like to find who the other 6 were.
Yeah,
to get a good sense of how much of a big hit they were. But there are teams that are near the look. Let's talk about Pittsburgh for a second. Pittsburgh is doing this will they, won't they thing with Aaron Rodgers. We don't know what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. It does feel like Aaron Rodgers will inevitably end up in Pittsburgh. But what if Pittsburgh's in a position to draft Shedeur Sanders? What if Shedeur Sanders drops to the bottom third of the draft and he can end up in a situation in Pittsburgh? You talk glowingly about Pittsburgh and the situation they have there, the environment they have there. Who's to say that Shedeur Sanders couldn't fall to Pittsburgh, for example, and end up having a solid career?
You're right. And this may end up, working out the way it's supposed to. Because I think Shedeur Sanders is in a position that in I'm going back to more recent years of quarterback sliding in Aaron Rodgers. I think that was the 2005 draft.
I assume that Aaron Rodgers was one of the quarterbacks
guys, yeah.
that Mel Kiper described as a big hit.
Exactly.
Who slid.
So you look at Aaron Rodgers, he slides into what turns out to be a great position for him. But great position. He may not have liked it initially, but it ended up working out. He has 4 MVPs, I believe, in the Super Bowl, and probably regarded as the greatest arm talent ever. And I know Patrick Mahomes is there, but when we talk about just the arm talent, he may go down as the greatest. But he ended up sliding into a perfect position for him. Probably didn't like it at first because Brett was still there, but it ended up working out. This may happen to Shedeur Sanders, where he falls to a team that is prepared to win, that is still in that winning phase. They don't necessarily need a quarterback today, but they know they're going to need a quarterback tomorrow. And when I mean tomorrow, I mean the next year, the next following year. So we draft Shedeur Sanders, i.e. Jordan Love. I'm thinking basketball. Jordan Love. Same organization, did the same thing. Drafted Jordan Love. He ends up in a perfect position where he sits behind, no pressure, and then you get paid a massive contract. Why? Because you play really good when you need to. That would be the ideal situation for Shedeur Sanders. So him falling to, let's say, Pittsburgh, it's great because Pittsburgh is in a position to win now, but they don't need necessarily Shedeur Sanders to play right away. Or you name another team that maybe in a year or two, they're going to need a quarterback. He may end up falling to a perfect position for himself where I don't need to be the starter this year and maybe not even next year. But like Jordan Love, I'm going to get that opportunity and I'm going to be already set up with a team ready to win.
615-737-1025. We'll continue the conversation on Shedeur Sanders coming up next. What Deion Sanders recently said about Shedeur Sanders. A bit of a change of tone from Deion Sanders, and we'll get to that next. But before we do, this Saturday, don't miss Nashville Super Speedway's pre-race concert contest. Nashville's next rising star at Dierks Bentley's Whiskey Row from 1 to 5 p.m. The contest will be emceed by 1025 The Game's Joe Dubin, and special guest DJ Mojo will keep the crowd hyped all afternoon. For more details, visit thegamenashville.com/events.
All right. As you well know, Archie Manning once upon a time wanted his son to play in the Big Apple,
And he did.
Eli to play in New York,
Yeah.
and he made that happen.
Yeah.
Would you like to see your son play in New York just because it's New York?
Honestly, Shador has told me, he's talked to me intently about all the visits he's had with all the teams. So I know where his heart is. I know where he wants to go. If it's New York, it's New York. If it's Tennessee, if it's Cleveland, if it's still the Raiders, if it's New Orleans, if it's any of those teams that are seeking a quarterback, I'm happy with it, man, because I know what he's going to do to the organization. I know what he's going to do.
That was Deion Sanders with Skip Bayless. A different tone struck by Deion Sanders. Remember, not too long ago, Deion Sanders was making noise that would indicate he would play the Archie Manning role, perhaps, and try to navigate his son to a certain situation. But at least now, according to Deion Sanders, if it's New York, if it's New York, it's Tennessee, it's Tennessee. If it's Cleveland, if it's Las Vegas, a team that needs a quarterback, seems like Shador Sanders would be happy to go there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, getting drafted is an honor. So, you know, even if you're considered the best player in the draft, I just don't, regardless of who it is, it's like, man, you've worked your tail off so much so that you are considered the number one guy in this year's draft. You know, as the year is going, you watch the league, you know what teams is going to pick first. Enjoy it. Go there and don't say or don't let come out of your camp. And this goes for the Mannings because they did it. And it goes for the Sanders because he sort of did it at the beginning. Understand that this is an honor and a privilege. One, to get drafted, period. But to get drafted number one overall. So coming in and say, well, I don't want my son to play for this team. Yo, damn arrogance, please. Like, seriously. Again, that goes for the Mannings when they did it, and it goes for the Sanders because he was doing it at the beginning, sort of. If you've played in this league and you understand this league, you know that, hey, listen, my son may not be going to the place that, you know, is ideal for him, like everything is set out for him, but he has a chance to change it once he go there. Why not have that mind? Why have that thought process? But you don't, because it's the arrogance behind it. You try to mask it as no, that's the arrogance of all of y'all. Instead of saying, you know what, my son played well enough, he may be the first pick. Whoever drafts him, they're getting a damn good ball player, but more importantly, they're getting a damn good leader and person off the field, and he's going to change your organization no matter who he goes to. But it doesn't happen. It hadn't happened that way in those two situations. But I think Coach Sanders, he may have found out, like, man, my son is dropping it, and it could be because of what I'm saying. So let me pull back a little. My thing is, if he does indeed drop, we don't know. It could happen, but it seems like, you know, from when we first started talking about this to now that he is slowly dropping. It ain't even slow. It's just like falling without a parachute right now. He may end up, again, like I said, he may end up in the best position for himself, because I look at teams like the Saints who don't need him to start now, but they may need him to start next year or 2 years. They can sort of move their way around in the draft. I look at the LA Rams, another prime example. They just signed not Bradford. Why do I always think Bradford?
Matthew Stafford.
Yes, Stafford.
Because it rhymes with Bradford.
Yes, Stafford. But beyond another year or two, they're going to be. So I could see a team like that drafting a Shedeur Sanders, developing him more within their system, and then they're ready to go after that. Why? Because they ain't got to pay him that much money. You know, so I believe that, you know, because of what has happened, and this is one of these things where I think we are going, the closer we get to the draft, and that when the actual draft happens, we're going to be talking more about Shedeur Sanders than the draft period, because he may end up getting drafted a lot higher than what people are predicting, or he may slide to a point where he's sliding out the first round. And the NFL Network, everybody will ride that story until that horse just falls out. They're going to do it. They did it with Will Levis as much as they could. They did it with Johnny Manziel. What makes you think they're not going to do it with Shedeur Sanders times 20, if indeed that happens? So this is something that he needs to be prepared for. But I can see those teams, and possibly say if the Titans do move out of that first spot, maybe they, move that with that second pick in the first round. I mean, that second pick in the first pick in the second round. Maybe they move out of that pick into the late first round and then get a quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, if he's still there. That would be a story in itself.
So Jim Wyatt at the Tennessee Titans website, a lot of stories from the league meetings. He had one with Chad Brinker. And here's a passage from that story. And I want to know, Derek, if you think this is a big deal, a little deal, or no deal. Jim Wyatt writes, quote, "This upcoming Friday, the Titans will once again be well represented at Colorado's Pro Day in Boulder. Then on April 9th, the team will once again have a large contingent on hand at private workouts for both players, meaning Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, including offensive and defensive coaches so they can evaluate Hunter as a dual prospect. DC Denard Wilson and passing game coordinator / cornerbacks Tony Oden will be on hand, along with members of the offensive staff. Since Brinker attended 2 of Colorado's games in the fall, he won't be on hand for the team's pro day. The Titans have already spent time with Sanders at the East-West Shrine game and the NFL Combine, in addition to hosting him for a 30 visit. So according to Jim Wyatt, Chad Brinker will not attend Colorado's pro day. I also saw Ian Rappaport tweet that Brinker and Brian Callahan won't be present at Colorado's pro day, having seen Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter multiple times already. They'll be part of a large Tennessee contingent at an April 9th private workout for both players. So Chad Brinker and I guess Brian Callahan not attending Colorado's pro day. Big deal, little deal, or no deal to you?
I think it's a big deal.
What does it tell you that they're not?
If I'm not really interested in you, had a face, it would look like that. Just what the Titans did. So
he's just not that into you.
Exactly. So
solid rom-com.
Yeah, you got to watch it if you hadn't seen
10 out of 10.
it. So what you're saying is the supreme ruler of all football.
Indeed.
And your head coach is not going to your workout.
To the
University of Colorado.
University workout.
Yeah, to the University workout pro day. That means, frankly, I'm not really that into you right now. Maybe if something happens, maybe if we trade, we can talk about it later. But right now, I'm really not into you. So have fun at your workout. We'll see you when you work out here in Nashville. That tells me they're out on both guys, really. And maybe they have seen enough film. I don't know. But I'm sure they've seen just as much film of Cam Ward as they did of Shedeur Sanders. But where was the supreme ruler of football at?
At Miami's pro day.
Absolutely. Where was the head coach at?
At Miami's pro day.
And the GM?
At Miami's pro day.
And Jim Wyatt?
At Miami's pro day. And I assume Jim Wyatt will also be at Colorado's pro day.
But I'm just saying, that whole contingent of people in the know, where were they at?
At Miami's pro day.
Absolutely. And all those people ain't going to be in and I would rather go to Colorado than Miami. I just like the mountains. So I would rather travel out west than I would down south. You know?
I'm not a huge Miami person.
Me either. I'm not either, so I don't blame you. But that just shows that, we believe you are a good player. The both of you. But we are not drafting either one of you with the number 1 pick. That's what it sounds. That if I'm not interested in you, look like something, it would look like what the Titans did. But it's no knock on those two guys. It's really not. It's just what the Titans are looking for.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts on Shedeur Sanders? Apparently, Chad, what's so funny over there?
David said something like, you like Colorado because and I just laugh. I just laugh. That's all.
It's a little funny.
Yes.
All righty. 615.
And it's not girls. That's not what it is. It's not girls. Okay.
So what you're saying is that our area code is not 420-615.
We're not saying that.
Yes.
We're not saying that, but
Yes.
yes, okay.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts on Shedeur Sanders and the fact that Chad Brinker and I guess Brian Callahan will not be at Colorado's Pro Day to see Shedeur Sanders or Travis Hunter, though they'll be here for a private workout a week from tomorrow. 615-737-1025. Let me tell all of you out there that this week's Nashville's Best Deal comes from Bad Axe Throwing Nashville, downtown's largest axe throwing venue and your go-to spot for food, fun, and vibes. Enjoy panoramic views of the city, a killer soundtrack, craft cocktails from the full bar, and a Northwoods-inspired menu with a Southern twist. This week, score half off a $50 gift card while supplies last. Head to thegamenashville.com/deals and grab yours now.
there. Are you pretty sure you know who you're taking?
You know, I think we're getting closer to that decision right now. We have a few more boxes to check here over the next couple of weeks, but we're getting close.
I'm fascinated with the interview process because I will learn a million things about you just from how engaging you are, what you're saying, how you look, what do you look to get out of let's just say sitting with Cam Ward? What are the questions that you want answered?
Yeah, you want to get to just know the person. I guess the hardest thing to do in this business, we're all going to miss on the tape at times, but the hardest thing to do is try to predict human behavior, right? So you really want to sit down with the person, get to know them, get to know their family as well. And then, our scouts go through school during the year and, do they love football? Do they love the process? Then once we get to the combine, we actually have a chance to sit down with the coaches. That's the first time they really get their hands on them. And to go through some X's and O's and to see if things line up to what we heard going through the school, some of their football intelligence piece, their leadership ability, how they relate to people. When we bring guys in on 30 visits, it's how they relate to everybody in the building, all the different departments. We have them sit and visit with them. How relatable are they? And that's an important part of being in the locker room.
I know she's gonna.
That was Mike Borgonzi with Kay Adams at the NFL League meetings. D. Mace Vingan-Adonic, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Mike Borgonzi, one thing that I've learned listening to Mike Borgonzi, we had the opportunity to interview Mike Borgonzi the day or two after he was hired. He is the undisputed. He is more than qualified. He is the undisputed king of saying a lot without saying anything. He can talk and talk and talk, and you don't know if you really learned anything by listening to him. There are some things that he says that are important, and you can key in on them. Jared astutely made the point when Cam Ward talked about solidifying the quarterback position. Mike Borgonzi spent a lot of time when he first got here talking about solidifying the quarterback position. So there are little tells in what Mike Borgonzi has to say, but I do find I listen to a lot of his interviews and I'm just like, I don't know how much I learned. And that's usually the sign of a good GM, to be honest with you.
Yeah, say a lot, but I'm only giving you a little.
Yes.
I think Fish was great at that. And you have to be as a head coach or a GM because they're asking you question after question, and you want to be respectful and you want to answer them whether you think it's a crazy question or not. But you've mastered the art of saying a lot but saying little. So I don't fault Borgonzi for that. Here's my thing. When he mentions, I want guys that love football.
You gotta love ball, man.
Yeah. And see what he has to understand. I think what he needs to understand is this. You can ask a guy that 20 years ago, and I think you would get, I love football. Why? Because of these reasons. But I think when you ask some of these athletes nowadays, you ask them, do you love ball? Do you love football? Their answer may be yes. But I've come to realize there are two people in the world of sports, mainly football, because that's the sport that I played. It's what can I do for football and what can football do for me? I love it either. I love it, but I love football because of what it can do for me. See, that's the question. So don't ask, love to compete. That's what I want to know. Do you love competition? If you love competition, okay. Because I can find 200 guys out of the 300 or some guys that are, will get drafted that say they love football. But why do you love it? Do you love it because of what it can ultimately afford you? Do you love it because it puts you in a position of notoriety, power? Financially, if you play well enough, even if you don't play well enough, they still pay backups handsomely and third stringers compared to the real world. So do you love football because of that? Or do you love football because of what you can do for the game? the mark that you can leave for the game. When people talk about you, it's talking about moving the game for what you did within the game. So do you like it because of that? How you can sort of, get everybody together and raise everybody up? Or do you like it because of it's going to put you in a position where, and listen, I get it, but that runs out very quickly. What can the league do for me? That runs out very quickly because after you done got your bag, it's like, and I've seen it a lot of times, people. After you got your bag, that hunger's not there no more. You're not hungry anymore. You're fat with steak, potatoes. So when you ain't hungry and your stomach fat, are you running around? Are you doing those extra things you need to be doing? No, you're not. Why? Because it's all about what the league can do for me. But if I want a guy that do you like to compete? All right, let's put a checkerboard down here. How bad do you want to win? Let's put a chessboard. How bad do you want to win? Let's put a game of cards. How bad do you want to? Let's go out there and play horse. How bad do you want to win? Let's race. How many times are you going to ask to race me until you win? That's competition. So I want to know if I want somebody that really loves to compete, because you're not going to be put in an ideal situation each time. Can you compete through that? It's not about whether you love the game or not. I know all y'all do for whatever reason, but do you love to compete?
I think the question that a lot of fans have is, does Shedeur Sanders fall into what you're describing because of the flashiness, being a member of the Sanders family, right? We talked about what are some of the reasons that Shedeur Sanders could fall other than his ability. It's, well, what's the Deion experience going to be like? Is he a team player? I think there was a mini controversy at some point when he was at Colorado about when he scored a touchdown, instead of the pep band playing, they played Shedeur Sanders' rap track or something like that. And it's like, well, he doesn't care about his team. He only cares about himself. So, I mean, I don't know Shedeur Sanders, obviously. If he gets drafted here, which again, I don't think is going to happen, maybe we'll have an opportunity to get to know him in some capacity. But based on what you've seen of Shedeur Sanders, Derek, do you have any concerns that Shedeur Sanders does not fit into the description that you just had about football?
Let me answer it this way. And I'm not going to say this and, think that Shedeur Sanders doesn't understand this. But there's a difference between Deion Sanders and Derek Mason saying, play my theme music after my song. Play it. It's different than Peyton Manning, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, after they score. Play my theme song. It doesn't hit the same. Why? Because they expect the quarterback to be what? A leader. They expect the quarterback to do his job without wanting all the flashy stuff, without drawing attention. Let your play draw attention to you. Don't do these. But Deion Sanders, Derek Mason, Terrell Owens, JJ Watt, all y'all got. Y'all can do that. Y'all can have fun with that. But the quarterback, you can't. You're just on a different tier. You may not like it, but you're on a different tier. You can't do those. You can't do those things. And I don't know if he did it or not. It's been alleged that is what happened. And I'm saying if that indeed did happen, I'm sure it doesn't sit well with some GMs and owners, because it does bring that it's about me. It's about me. And I'm not saying that's Shedeur Sanders. Allegedly, if that happens, that's just a check against you. It is, because to them, it's about you and not about the team. Again, I'm not saying he did it or not, but that did come out. From what I seen, the play on the field, he's shown me that he's more a team player than not team player. But I know he understands, and maybe this is why Deion has backed off a little bit. Perception is reality, especially at the quarterback position. And whatever perception is being pushed the hardest, it may either hurt you or it may help you. And maybe in this situation, these alleged things that he's done, is hurting him rather than helping him.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts on Shedeur Sanders. Again, I find him to be the most fascinating prospect in this draft. I can imagine a wide range of scenarios for Shedeur Sanders, whether he's near the top of the draft. I could see him sliding down to the bottom half of the first round. I can't imagine him getting I can't imagine him not being selected in the first round. But I do imagine a wide range of scenarios in the first round for Shedeur Sanders. Your thoughts? 615-737-1025. The Titans, well, most of the Titans personnel team will be at the Colorado Pro Day later this week, and Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter will be here for a private workout a week from tomorrow. 615-737-1025. But coming up next, at the NFL league meetings, a lot of talk about rule changes, specifically one in particular. Derek mentioned pushing. That's exactly what we're going to talk about.
And bottoms.
Coming up next, 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game. D-Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Willie Donick out today. He will be back tomorrow. Predators at Blue Jackets tonight at 6, pregame at 5, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Jared Stillman says that Barry Trotz will join him at 4 o'clock today instead of the usual 5 with the early start time. So Barry Trotz will be on with Jared Stillman today at 4 o'clock. Actually, before we get to the tush push, Derek Mason, speaking of Jared Stillman, there was one thing I wanted to ask you about. So Jared theorized on his program yesterday. I just want to make sure I have this correct, so I'm just going to read straight from the tweet. He said, quote, I believe the Titans, in a perfect world in their minds, would trade the number 1 pick for a haul, most likely to the Giants, and then would take Shedeur Sanders with the 3rd overall pick, or maybe even later. Earlier in the show, he had a segment. Quote, I don't think the Titans want to draft Cam Ward at number 1. I think they want their cake and to eat it too. They want to trade the pick and get the player they want, which he would believe in this theory to be Shedeur Sanders. How much do you believe that?
I mean, I'm not going to. It's just his thoughts. I wouldn't lean that way. I think I know I've said that I think the Titans are in a position of, let me see, unless you give me something, and we're assuming that based upon what has been sort of out there, and not that it's true, but what is out there, the Titans want 3 first-round picks or 2 first-round picks. Let's just say that. Unless somebody's willing to give us that, and they probably know it's a tad bit too high, but what the hell? Unless somebody ain't willing to give me that, we're good with taking Cam Ward. I think that's how they feel. We're good with taking Cam Ward. We see him and envision him as a leader in our organization. We're good. But if you want to give us over and beyond this pick, okay, give it to us. Because we can do this either way. We can either draft our quarterback and start building that way, or we can have the 100 picks in so many drafts. We can do it that way. But either way, we're going to be headed down the right road.
So the tush push. According to ESPN, NFL owners plan to continue discussions about the Eagles' short yardage tush push play after tabling a proposal Tuesday to ban it, league officials said. The Green Bay Packers authored the proposal, which earned the support of 16 NFL teams, 2 sources told ESPN's Kalen Kaler. NFL bylaws require a minimum of 24 votes to approve a change. The topic is likely to be revisited when owners gather for their spring meeting in May in Minnesota. So there appears to be some momentum behind banning the tush push. In this article on ESPN.com, it says, quote, while there were some subjective concerns about the safety risk of the tush push, the NFL's health and safety department had no data that suggested a single injury had occurred as a result of the Eagles or any other team using it. The Buffalo Bills were the only other team that used it regularly last season, and they combined with the Eagles to call 65 of the 101 tush push runs in 2024. So you need 24 approvals to make a change. The NFL owners are reportedly at 16. So they're 2/3 of the way there. Do you think it gets there, Derek Mason?
Oh, boy.
And should it?
Quickly, I think this is real. Buzz Williams has been hired by Maryland, on the University of Maryland.
Yep, it's confirmed by Pete
as
Thamel.
their head basketball coach.
Yeah, so Buzz Williams of Texas A&M will now be the head coach of the Maryland Terrapins after their coach, Kevin Willard, bailed on Maryland to go coach Villanova. So that is indeed real for you Aggies fans out there.
So this is the point where you got to be cautious of what you say because it's April Fool's. So you got to be like, man, I got to make sure this is absolutely right.
ESPN pushed it out, so I feel it's true.
Yeah. So going back to the question, listen, this is what happens. One team is uber successful at something. Then all of a sudden you may have one or two teams saying, well, we want to go against that. That shouldn't be allowed. And then the NFL either caves in and they, say, yes, we're going to change the rules, or they put it off. And it seems like they're putting off the tush push.
At least for now.
One, they bring up injury. To my knowledge, I don't think there's been an injury when it comes to the tush push. At least not a catastrophic injury.
Here is a portion of the story on ESPN.com. Although there was no injury data to support a ban, NFL Chief Medical Officer Dr. Alan Sills did tell owners this week that the mechanics of the play could lead to injury. Sources told ESPN. Another source told ESPN that some owners warned their colleagues that a serious injury was just a matter of time.
That is football, right? The minute you line up on the football field, you strap up that helmet, you put on those pads, just to shoulder pads, because they don't wear anything else when it comes to pads. So when you strap on that helmet, throw them shoulder pads, strap on that helmet, and step on that field, the minute you do that, the likelihood of you getting injured goes up tremendously. The minute you put on that helmet and step on that field. Now it goes from you being a 0 liability to 100%, 97% liability when it comes to injuries. That you will get injured somehow, some way in this game, or hurt. Which, if you say hurt, it's 100%. You're gonna have something's gonna happen in the game. So for them, that's like, dude, if you don't have no data, don't make up crap, or don't say, well, it will happen. I'm tired of that stuff. When you have no data or the right data, and then now you want to push that and say, this is why we need to end, this particular play. Well, give me the data showing that this play is more likely to have an injury than, say, just a regular quarterback push. Quarterback sneak, or a run up the middle, or run out or catch in the middle of the field. Show me some data. Because that's ultimately what it comes down to. If you can't show me the data that supports what you're saying, then why are we even having this conversation? There was data to support, removing the wedge from the kickoff. Why? Because there were too many damn concussions. And guys were ultimately losing their lives because of it. That's real data. That's saying, okay, we got to eliminate this stuff. But when there's no data, you say, well, it may happen. Well, me going up for a pass, I may get hit and I may fall and get hurt. Do you want to outlaw that? No, they don't. So, listen, I understand that you may not be as successful as the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, you go get you a quarterback that can squat 600 pounds, an offensive line that averages 330 or 40 pounds. You go do that, and then you'll be able to run that play with a high probability of you making it. I think the second place team was the Buffalo Bills at 70-some% or 60-some%.
The Eagles and the Bills were the two teams that made up the majority of the tush push runs.
Exactly. Why? Because they have big physical quarterbacks or strong quarterbacks, and the offensive line is big enough to do it. If you don't have that type of offensive line, like that, Baltimore Ravens can't do it with Lamar. Lamar's not big.
That's why they use Mark Andrews.
Exactly. They use Mark Andrews. Lamar is light in the backside. He can't squat 600 pounds, and he don't need to squat 600 pounds. He's not that type of quarterback. The offensive line is not the biggest offensive line in the National Football League. Didn't they show y'all that stat about Philadelphia's offensive line? They're the biggest offensive line in the National Football League. I wonder why the Cowboys don't do it.
I thought it was in history.
It may be in history.
During the Super Bowl, they showed.
It may be in the Super Bowl,
the average. Yeah. They showed the average. I remember this graphic. During the Super Bowl, they showed the average height and weight of the Eagles starting offensive linemen compared to, I think, the Packers starting offensive linemen in the first Super Bowl. And it was just like ridiculous. Like the average weight, the Eagles were like 75 pounds heavier on average,
exactly.
or something like that.
Yeah. So my thing is, listen, y'all want to do it, but y'all can't do it. You know? So what if just because y'all can't do it, and it's not like y'all can't do it because we're telling y'all can't do it. No, y'all can't do it because y'all are not good at y'all are not better than Philadelphia or Buffalo at doing it. When you do it, it's more like 50-50.
Committee Chairman Rich McKay said last week and reiterated Tuesday that the league generally frowns on rule changes that target only one or two teams. The NFL prohibited players to push ball carriers for much of its history before changing its rules to allow it in 2005, citing the difficulty of officiating it. During Tuesday's meeting, McKay said the Packers offered to change the focus on potentially reinstating the historic rule. The distinction, sources told ESPN, is that it would also ban players from pushing ball carriers downfield and thus eliminate the focus on the Eagles' play.
Exactly, because now you are opening a can of worms. You're opening Pandora's box. Oh, we can't push at the line of scrimmage, but we can push down the field. That doesn't make like that. They're both football moves or football plays. So why is mine any different from yours? Because I've seen so many piles when guys catch a ball on the outside or a running back gets to the outside and he's trying to scrap for that extra yard. And all of a sudden you see all these big offensive linemen coming in and they're just running up fast. That's more of a liability than anything. But they're not going to outlaw that. You know, they want to go to the tush push. Why? Because Philadelphia, nobody can stop it, or they have a hard time at stopping it. But when you say, okay, we are going to outlaw that, what's different from that than pushing somebody down the field, period? And we're not, saying it's a tush push. It's still pushing somebody's tush, ain't it? Down the field. How many times have we seen piles down the field get pushed for 3-4 seconds? And the announcer, oh, look at him. He's driving it. Look at the other guys, his teammates. They're pushing him 2, 3, 4. Look at him. He's not down. And no whistles are being blown. So what's the difference?
Sean McVay, Rams head coach, was on Pro Football Talk with Mike Florio talking about the tush push yesterday. This was before the news that they were tabling this for another month or so. This was Sean McVay with Mike Florio.
Where do you stand on the tush push?
Here's what I would say. I don't, and I told these guys this, I don't believe in taking something out because they do it better than anybody else. And I told both John and Howie that when we were talking yesterday. What I don't like is the optics of that play. It looks like a rugby scrum. And there are some health and safety things, which those things exist in short yardage and goal line situations as well. So I'm kind of conflicted because you don't want to be a hater because they do it better than anybody else. So I don't agree with that. But I also wish we didn't let the play in the first place in regards to just the optics of what it looks like. Doesn't look like football to me.
It doesn't look like football. It is football. What isn't more football than that? That is the essence of football. Me versus you trying to stop me from gaining the line that I need for a first down. What is not more football than that? That's essentially football. But again, because you can't, I know he said it, I hate it. No, but you can't have it both ways. So to me, that is what football truly is right there. Us versus you.
Would you like me to point out the teams that have openly expressed opposition to the tush push?
Yes, go ahead.
This is according to CBS. The Atlanta Falcons. Coach Raheem Morris went on record, as he's done previously, describing his dislike for the play and for what his team must do to stop it. Buffalo. Coach Sean McDermott said Tuesday he's concerned with player safety on the push play, even though there's not significant medical data out there to this point, which is interesting because the Bills run the play. The only team that comes close to running this play as successfully as the Eagles is the Bills. So the Falcons and the Bills are on record. The Cowboys. Co-owner Stephen Jones indicated Dallas will vote against the push, desiring consistency in rule enforcement as linebackers aren't currently permitted to push defensive linemen when defending extra points. The Packers, the only team to officially propose a ban of the play, so obviously they're in favor of eliminating it. In the Rams, based on what Sean McVay just said.
Okay, so Dallas says, well, because we can't push our linebackers on an extra point. Okay, I get that, but that's been in. But you can push your linebacker if it's 4th and 1, can't you? I don't think there's a rule saying, hey, listen, you can't push your linebacker, or a linebacker, you can't push your defensive tackle when it's 4th and 1. You can't push them. But you can't do. They just don't want you to hit the center in that situation, because why? The center is typically a undersized guy, and but on punt he is, but on what you call it, he's not. He's usually the center, but typically is it's different from an actual offensive play. So they outlawed that a while ago. But that's nothing like a quarterback sneak. They didn't say on defense, linebackers, y'all can't push the defensive tackles on 4th and 1 in actual, 1st, 2nd, or 3rd down. They said you couldn't do it on field goal, on extra points. So again, it's like, man, are y'all just proposing things just to do it? Like, I don't get this one.
So those are the teams, the Falcons, Bills, Cowboys, Packers, and Rams, who have been on the record, at least, opposing the tush push. Here are the teams that have been on the record and supporting it. Obviously, the Eagles, because they are the purveyors of the tush push. The Ravens, John Harbaugh labeled the push a football play, though he left the door open for a change of opinion if medical experts advise against it. The Panthers, the Browns, the Texans, the Colts, the Patriots, the Saints, the Jets, and of course the Eagles. Those are the teams who are in favor of it. New Jets coach Aaron Glenn indicated it's his job to, quote, stop that play, not ban it. He gave credit to the Eagles for, quote, creating a good play that's hard to defend.
Exactly. Because you have a hard time at defending it doesn't mean you should outlaw it. It is a football move. They're not doing anything illegal. They're not doing anything that you can't then turn around and do against them. They're just better at stopping you. They're just better at you not stopping them and them stopping you. Because you could just as easily run it on them if you wanted to against them, or run it against everybody else. But you don't run it with the precision that the Philadelphia Eagles run it with. And your offensive line is not as big as theirs. And your quarterback doesn't squat 600 pounds. So listen, the NFL I think they could find better time than voting whether to keep this play in or not. Again, I could see if it was a play that 4 or 5 guys got injured, because even if one guy, we can think about one guy.
To my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I don't recall a player suffering a serious injury because of this play yet.
Exactly. Yeah. And I get it. It can. But if that is indeed the case, again, this whole thing, I think this could eventually open up Pandora's box, and it could lead to it going somewhere it doesn't need, or affecting other plays that it doesn't need to affect. So much so, what happened with pass interference when they decided, we're going to replay this? It became just the worst thing in the world. And then what happened in the very next season? They took it out. Nope, we're no longer doing that. I think the same thing will happen to this. Why? Because I think it will bleed into other things.
615-737-1025. Where do you stand on the great tush push debate of 2025? The NFL tabling this discussion for another month. Reportedly, there are 16 teams that support banning it. The NFL would need 24 teams to approve it in order to make the change. 615-737-1025. Hey, the Atlanta Braves country road trip is coming to town and teaming up with the Nashville Predators and us right here at 1025 The Game. Join us at the BetMGM Sports Lounge in Bridgestone Arena on Wednesday, April 16th for a Braves watch party as they take on the Tampa Bay Rays at noon. There will be free giveaways such as hats and t-shirts, plus you can win autographed baseballs and free tickets. For more details, visit thegamenashville.com/events. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Talking tush push. Clay is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com. Clay wants to get in on this. Clay, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hey guys, how y'all doing?
Good.
D-Mace,
What's going on?
I called you and Willie the other day talking about the NCAA tournament, and I've got something to say to you man to man, my man.
What's happening?
I was at the 1999 AFC Championship game in Jacksonville, and I remember your punt return. And I've talked about this, about you, about this to you before, you know, on the radio when you've been on various shows. I wore your jersey. I alternated between you and Keith Bullock. You were my two guys. I mean, you're what, 5'9", 5'10", right?
5'11".
5'11".
Don't sell him short,
Yeah,
Clay.
don't sell him short, but let's go with it.
Flat got it done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I respect you. You were a hell of a player, and I just have the ultimate respect for you, my man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot.
I was at Steve's funeral. Your eulogy was beautiful. And, you know, that's powerful, Derek.
Mm-hmm.
Very powerful. Because you lost a brother. Somebody you went to war with. But anyway, as far as the tush push, I'm not crazy about it simply because I'm kind of a Dallas Cowboy fan too. Love the team, do not like the owner though, as a lot of people don't. So being a kind of a Cowboys fan, you know, obviously I don't like the Philadelphia Eagles, and they're so good at it. They seem to be the best at it. I just don't think, I don't know. I like what was said a minute ago about it being kind of like a rugby scrum. It just doesn't seem like a football play to me. It's impossible, it seems to me, for anybody to stop the Eagles, you know, when they do it. And so I don't know, you know, so I'm not for it. I just don't think it's good for the game. I guess that's my comment.
Thanks for the call, Clay.
Thank you, Clay, and thank you for all the nice words you said at the beginning of that as well. Listen, to me, this play, one, it is a football play, I do believe. And because didn't the Kansas City Chiefs try this, or the quarterback sneak or something like that? And they really didn't get it, but they got it against Buffalo. Was it just a quarterback sneak or a tush push kind of deal?
I don't recall.
But either way, I think it was one or the other. But it was a controversy because did he make it or did he not? What I think the league should do when you're talking about this play, because there have been so many times that I've watched the game and I'm thinking, like, why are y'all not blowing the whistle? This is how somebody gets hurt. I've said that over and over again. This is how somebody gets hurt. Why? Because you're not blowing the whistle. The play is it's done. Blow the whistle. Don't let nobody else come in and try to, you know, push the pile. Blow the whistle. I think that's what will start to happen now, because they haven't figured this thing out, and I don't think they really want to, because that's just being hyperbolic. It's just being, oh, this team running more than everybody else, and so we need to change it. No. I think the best thing to do is, you don't want any injury, and there's no data of any injuries. I hope there never is an injury in regards to this play. But those whistles should be blowing a lot quicker than what they are, because they allow these things to linger, whether it be down the field and there's a pile going on, or at the line of scrimmage. Those whistles don't come in until like 3 seconds later. Somebody could have got hurt in those 3 seconds. There need to be a quicker whistle, because if you give me 3 seconds to push somebody over the pile, eventually it's going to happen. So to me, there needs to be a quicker whistle, a quicker dead ball. Like the play is dead. There need to be a much faster whistle on that than to take the play out completely. I think start there first and see how that works.
Jason Lloyd at The Athletic wrote a column that was published yesterday, so before the news that the voting has been tabled. Tush push vote in the name of player safety leaves impression of weakness and hypocrisy, according to Jason Lloyd of The Athletic. He writes in part, quote, as the league gathers here to vote Tuesday on whether to abolish the unique form of the quarterback sneak, let's be clear. This isn't a player safety issue, no matter how many coaches or GMs want to frame it as such. Teams have unsuccessfully tried for years to stop it. Now they're giving up on the idea of defending it on the field and instead attempting to ban it without any data to support their cause. He continues, there is no data to support the idea that the tush push leads to more injuries. None, at least none that have been made public. Those who are against it, like Buffalo Bills coach Sean McDermott, are projecting that it could be dangerous based on the added force involved in the rugby-style play and a player's posture in both executing it and trying to stop it. The league and Players Association have volumes of data on injuries and injury prevention that they continue to ignore. For instance, there is plenty of data regarding grass versus turf fields. Players overwhelmingly prefer competing on natural grass. Mass General Brigham Hospital released a study last year indicating that about 20% more non-contact injuries occur on a turf surface than on grass. An NFLPA survey last year revealed 92% of players prefer playing on natural grass to turf. Has the league worked to ban turf as a player safety issue?
Nope.
Of course not. Roughly half the league still plays on it. It's disingenuous to identify the tush push as standing up for player safety when the league closes its eyes to real safety concerns, such as adding an 18th game.
See, that's the hypocrisy. That's the, wanting your cake and eating it too. Yeah, we'll talk about, if indeed we do ban the tush push. Yeah, we'll ban the tush push, but we're gonna add another game to your schedule. It wouldn't adding another game to my schedule increase the likelihood of me getting injured than the tush push?
Probably.
Yep. You don't even have to answer. It probably would. More than likely it would. There are other issues that in the NFL, listen, the NFL is more of a reactive league. Some other leagues are more proactive. The NFL has always been reactive. I pray no one gets hurt or have a significant injury when dealing with the tush push or any short yardage play period. But eventually, the odds say eventually somebody will twist an ankle or something. Somebody will get hurt. And then there will be this huge uproar. If I told you, you should have banned it. No, it happens. This is football. Injuries are going to happen. Did injuries stop because you outlawed, helmet to helmet hits? Did concussions stop? No, they went down. Yes. But did they stop? No, they didn't. So again, I am it's one of those deals where, man, y'all may be going a little bit too far, but y'all don't want to change other things that have scientific data to prove that by you doing this, it's causing more harm than good. But I'm sure it's a lot cheaper for you to put turf down than it is to maintain grass.
Wayne in Hopkinsville says, as a Packer fan, I think it's ironic that the Packers have run the love shove for the past 2 seasons and have been very effective with it, considering that the Packers were the team that introduced this proposal to ban the tush push. Brian says, rugby players are absolute warriors. Be warriors. Keep the tush push in the game. One texter says, the tush push is equivalent to William Refrigerator Perry running the ball on the goal line. I love it. It also doesn't surprise me that the Titans didn't vote either way. Now, we don't know that. It's just they haven't been on the record about it.
Exactly. Didn't I just say that when we were on break? It would be like trying to ban, William Refrigerator Perry from being in the backfield, where he's 370 pounds, and anybody that's going to tackle him at that point of time was at least 40 pounds lighter. At least 40 pounds lighter. Okay, and I'm talking about defensive lineman back there too. Back then too, he was probably the biggest guy out there. So don't put Jeffrey Simmons in the backfield no more. Don't put any of these linemen that are 350, 60 pounds. Don't put them in the backfield to block for you or to run the football, because he running up against my 210 pound or 190 pound safety that's coming off the edge or corner. That ain't a matchup. He's more likely to get hurt than Jeffrey Simmons at 320 pounds. So outlaw that stuff too. But they're not. So why just aim at the tush push? Again, there is no scientific data that you have formed. And I know the tush push is kind of new, but there's no scientific data that you have that put together or have, had that states that this play increases the chances of you getting injured. It's just like any other play.
The tush push has been in use for 3 seasons now,
Mhm.
3-4 seasons. That is plenty of time, in my
Exactly.
opinion, to have data to show you whether or not it leads to serious injury.
Exactly.
Again, I understand that
Mhm.
it doesn't, as some of the coaches who are against it are saying, there's the possibility
Mhm.
of injury, which is true. But like you also said, Derek, someone who played this sport for 15 years at the NFL level, every play in football leaves you subject to injury.
Mhm.
So I can't get behind this idea. Well, it might eventually cause injury. Now, if this particular play had caused multiple critical injuries already, then I would absolutely be on board with banning it. But it feels to me,
Mhm.
as you've been saying so eloquently, that it just feels like an excuse for every other team to say, well, we can't stop it, so we're just going to ban it so we don't have to worry about it.
Even the teams that are successful
Right.
at
That's
it.
why I find the Bills' inclusion in this to be interesting. The Bills are apparently on the side of getting rid of it.
Mhm.
They're the only team that comes close to doing it as well as the Eagles.
Because they may have to face the Eagles in the Super Bowl. That's the way I see it. But again,
That's possibly
I
true.
know people will say, Derek, you just said that the league is not, because I think about all these things before I say them. So I think about the counter more than anything. Well, Derek, you said that the league is not proactive. They're more so reactive. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I would want them to be proactive. But this is not one where the numbers show over the course of the last 3 years and they just ignored the numbers. Or how does this push the game forward by outlawing this? I don't think it does. When I'm talking about being proactive, I'm talking about things that you do that pushes your game forward. And the NFL has been lagging at that. But this is not one of those reasons where, we need to be in the forefront of getting rid of the tush push or the love shove or the big booty tootie push, whatever you want to call it. Okay, Lakers in 5. No, no. I want the league to be proactive, but this is not a situation where the league needs to be proactive. Just stand down on this one, NFL. Let it play out. And I do pray that no one gets hurt, as I do with all these guys when they step foot on that field.
615-737-1025. We will take your thoughts on the tush push on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Let me also remind you that our program, D. Mace, Vingen, and Donick, is proudly presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We will wrap up the show next. Derek Mason, Adam Vingen, 1025-1063, The Game. D-Mace Finken and Dodge 1025,
Oh, my
1063 the
goodness.
game. I haven't heard this before.
I've heard it. My son is he's sung the words to it. I mean, there are so many. This is why it's just like, this generation of kids, as much as maybe some people my age or a little bit older than me may think, what some of these kids are doing. These kids are so talented. I tell you, man, the things that they can do with computers and all this other stuff. I mean, yeah, some people use it in a bad way. I get it. But man, stuff like that, like I would have never thought to do that when I was hell. We ain't barely had computers then.
You grew up in the good old days of
It's
just
that floppy disk.
walking to and fro school
Exactly.
in the cold.
We ain't had no video phone and all that other stuff. But no, these kids, I mean, whoever, I'm sure is a younger person.
You used to have to get a map at AAA. and it was a
Exactly.
gigantic map that you had to unfurl. You didn't even have MapQuest or Google Maps. You couldn't print out directions.
You had to make sure you had a
Oh.
quarter to call someone.
Yeah, the good old days. From that respect. The good old days from that respect. But yeah, these young folks are so darn talented. It's pathetic. Yeah, but that's funny. My son was singing that to me. I'm like, they make up anything. It doesn't matter. Like sometimes I don't think this group of kids are as serious. But I'm trying to think, was I serious back in when I was 18, 19 years old? That serious? I was still messing around telling jokes and all that stuff. So they take situations like that and they make fun of it, which is good in a sense. So, but yeah, that's funny.
So although the tush push conversation was tabled, NFL owners did indeed approve a significant change to the league's kickoff structure at these meetings. The touchback on kickoffs will be marked at the 35-yard line for the 2025 season, a move that league officials and special teams coaches said will prompt a significant increase in the return rate. The new language reflects the original intent of the massive revamp the NFL instituted in 2024, when final negotiations resulted in a touchback spotted at the 30. That left many coaches comfortable kicking touchbacks in 2024, and the league produced a return rate of 32.8%. Denver Broncos special teams coach Darren Rizzi, one of the primary architects of the revamp, projected a 2025 return rate between 70 and 75%.
See, when you're talking about taking football plays out of football, and I understand why they did it, because they were trying to cut down on head injuries.
And by the way, the concussion rate on
Right,
kickoffs last season dropped 43%
Yeah,
from
so
2023.
I get why they did it, and I applaud them, for trying to find ways, because all of this came up because of the lawsuit. Let's not forget that. But trying to find ways to make the game safer. But you can't go so far one side that part. I am passionate about this. Why? Because anybody that knows my career, it started there. That particular play, which they are trying to they tried to remove from the game. That play, and I understand, because of the head injuries that were happening, it's a violent play. But that particular play right there helped my career propel. That play, had they not had that in, I wouldn't have had as many returns as I had. I wouldn't have been able to show that once the ball's in my hand, I can make something happen. I have the ability to run things back, score touchdowns, or put teams in a really good position, as I did when I was the returner for the Titans. And then when you go so far as to basically eliminate it. So what you're doing, man, is you're taking opportunities away from other guys that may not make the team outside a kickoff return or kickoff. Why? Because you put it at such a place where there's no more kickoffs, period. Instead of thinking about this truly, and I understand that it's sort of trial and error. You went to extreme, now you kind of reeling it, you kind of loosening up the strings a little bit. So I get it. I understand you had to nip it in the bud so the percentages could drop drastically. So I get that part. But in doing that, you took away that like special teams is unique. It's called special teams for a reason, okay? Because you're taking a collection of different players, offensively, defensively, non-starters, starters, and you're all putting them in this room. And this is considered a special unit because we all don't work together all the time. But this is a special unit to go out there to try to do something out of the normal first, second, third down, to try to generate either a big play, either way. And you don't know how much that meant. Guys to this day still talk about, man, when you was a returner, we always started at the 35, 40, it seemed like. You always put us in a good position. You can't say that now because they've outlawed everything. They've put such a stranglehold on it that now you're not even getting returns no more. Guys see the ball in the air and they walking the other way. It's like, that's not football. That's not exciting. I want it to be where it's a tie game with a minute left and I get an opportunity to affect the football game with my return. Not, oh man, they just gonna kick it through the back of the end zone and I just walk off the field. That's not football. So I'm glad the NFL is trying to, and they tried it last year. That's why they gave you the zones. They were trying to get people to kick more so in the zones and put the ball at the 30 if you didn't. But that didn't work. Okay, if y'all don't want, okay, we're gonna put it at the 35 now and see what y'all do. Bring that play back to the game. I miss it. And I'm sure there are people out there like me that miss it. Ask Devin Hester. He wouldn't have made it to the Hall of Fame. Literally. Devin Hester wouldn't have made it to the Hall of Fame if it wasn't because of that play. Literally. So why go that far to try to reach, try to stranglehold a play and try to take it out the game? Because that's what you were trying to do essentially, is remove that play from the game. And I kept saying, no, you can't. So I'm glad they've changed the rules once again.
Do you think that 5-yard adjustment will make a huge difference?
I think so, especially late in the game, because there's a difference between, that's why they moved it up to the 35. There's a difference between, especially with some of these quarterbacks, man, and these high explosive offenses, there's a difference between starting at the 30 and the 35-yard line. There's a big difference. So I understand why, okay, y'all don't want to, we're going to put the ball at 35 and see how many of y'all, kick or return balls now. Or put the ball in the position where it can be returned, as opposed to just kicking it out the back of the end zone.
Do you have any April Fool's jokes before we leave?
No, I don't have any April Fool's jokes, man. I don't know.
Y'all look great today, April Fools. Y'all look great every day.
I thought about something, but I was like, nah, I can't do it. I don't want to do it because again, it goes to that, what can you say on the air, like April Fool's wise, that won't get people, you don't want to, make somebody think something happening and ain't really happening about somebody else. Now, I did it last year by myself and people believed it.
Yeah, you really upset some of the listeners apparently.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was just April Fool's. See, even April Fool's.
But here's something that is never a joke. Mm-hmm. We had a wonderful time on today's show. Doesn't matter if it's April 1st, April 2nd, April 3rd, April 4th, any day of the year. We had a wonderful time with all of you. That'll do it for us today on April Fool's Day. Predators an hour earlier today. Pregame at 5, puck drop at 6 in Columbus. Barry Trotz will join Jared Stillman at 4 o'clock instead of the usual 5 o'clock. Remember the animated game on News Channel 5 at 6 o'clock. Max Hers, Chris Mason on the call. If you've got little ones, check it out. I'm sure they'll love it. Something else you'll love. Stillman and Company coming up next. 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
And his special guest, Ran Carthon.
That big April Fool's
would be an April Fool's joke. We should have done that. We should have teased an exclusive interview with Jared at Ran Carthon or Chad Brinker Oh man, I missed out.
See, I thought about it too late.
All right, take us out,
Oh
Darren.
man, but again, once again, people, love your people, love those around you, extend your love even further than that. Because don't just love the people around you, extend it even further than that. Be safe, be wonderful, be blessed. Have a safe, wonderful Tuesday. Today is Tuesday, right? All right, then. Talk to you tomorrow. Peace.